The transition away from lead is going to affect how everyone shoots. It's just as important for young shots to learn about this change, as there are a few key areas that will affect what and how youngsters shoot. And where better to learn about the transition away from lead than the Game Fair 2021. I'm BASC Youngshots journalist Louis Sykes, and here's what I've learned about sustainable ammo at the Game Fair. Walking along Gunmakers Row, it was clear that sustainability was the leading issue for manufacturers. The transition away from lead means that many of us will have to start using steel shot or other lead alternatives. I had a few questions about how this will affect young shots, so I stopped by the Gun Trade Association tent to find out more. A lot of young shots learn to shoot with smaller guns, so I was keen to ask what shot types are available for smaller gauges.
So there's a bit of a challenge for small caliber guns. Now, steel is lighter or less dense than lead, so we need a bit more of it to create the same load effect downrange. And we know we've got to squeeze a cup in, which not all, lead fibre cartridge doesn't need a cup. So we're a bit pushed for space. Now, if you've got a 10 gauge, easy, there's lots of space and you can put everything in. A plastic wad and plenty of steel shot. A 12, yeah, it's getting more difficult, but there's still plenty of capacity. A 20 bore, it's getting quite narrow, and I would say that's really the limit of what we can achieve in terms of making sure we get target effect with enough steel and the wad and enough powder. But 410, really difficult. 28 gauge, really difficult, and I don't think we're going to see steel as the alternative. There will be others. There'll be bismuth, tungsten matrix, some new designs. This is a thing called Blue Shot with it's a non-lead amalgam alloy of different metals, some bismuth in there, and it might be that's what we look for the 410 and 28 gauge to keep our young people happy.
Another concern for some young shots is whether inherited guns can fire steel. The Gun Trade Association was keen to point out, though, that it's not necessarily the end of the line for old guns.
So there are two types of steel ammunition. There's high performance ammunition with high pressures, high velocities, and there is a standard steel cartridge which can be fired through any nitro-proofed gun with chokes less than half or less. So the old guns that many of us have inherited, and of course they were built to such a high standard 100 years ago that they're still going today. I doubt if the makers then thought they would still be being used 100 years later, but luckily because of the British gun trade, pinnacle of the art, we have guns that have lasted and lasted. Now, as long as they're nitro-proofed, and they've got a proof mark, and the proof house says, a 1954 mark or later is good enough for standard steel. So as long as your chokes aren't too tight, half or less is good, then you can fire standard steel.
To find out what this change will mean on the ground, I grabbed a friend and headed over to the Game Fair's clay stands to try out some sustainable cartridges.
That's the Spanish bioammo. It's made of cornstarch. Both the case and the wad is made of cornstarch. It takes about 18 months to biodegrade or compost down. And I think this load is a 24 gram number 7, so that's a clay shooting load. But they also do game shooting loads as well.
That's a good load. That's nice.
Yeah. Ely VIP Steel Pro Eco Wad. This is a clay load, 28 gram 7. They also do game loads as well, so they do 5s, 4s and 3s. This is the one with the potato starch wad.
Yeah, I felt really good.
Yeah? So we'll try some of these jockers. So these are the French cartridges. This is a 21 gram number 7. It's the equivalent of a 28 gram lead load. But they work just as well.
Yeah.
Try another couple of those.
It's got almost like recoil on these.
Yeah, there's a lot less recoil.
Yeah.
The last ones to try are the Ely Grand Prix Pro Recoil steel. So again, these have got the potato starch wad, but 2.5 inch cartridges, so you can use them for all English game guns. Awesome. So that's the 4 cartridges.
Very good, Lakey. Yeah. They felt really good, yeah, especially the last ones. Well, not second to last one, wasn't it? The potato, was it? Shot? Very little recoil to it, yeah.
Well, that was the Jocker.
Yeah, those ones, yeah. They're very good.
So because they're steel, you don't need to have a 28 gram load. That is the equivalent of a 28 gram.
Yeah.
If you want to find out more about sustainable ammo, there's lots of information and articles on the BASC website, linked in the description below. If you'd like to create videos, take photographs, or write for BASC, join the annual Youngshots Journalist Project, where it opens for entries again next summer. You can also contact the Publications Department in BASC and ask about freelance positions.